Wake up. It's time for Primal Scream.
Welcome back to the Primal Scream. I'm Matt.
I am Todd.
As if he's Todd, right? We're in Minnesota today, right next to Mall of America. I kind of did a twofer trip with the family. We rode some rides. We ate some
Wings.
questionable food. We had some great food at Hooters. Haven't been there in, I don't know, a coon's age. How long exactly is a coon's age?
How do you describe a coon's age?
Yeah, but I will tell you this. There's a reason why you call it Hooters, and I sure do like that place. And you don't know, Bryan is with us today. Bryan, we're going to be talking about environmental issues and things like that, and it's not going to be all boring. But we're also going to be talking about
Hug a tree.
yeah, it's not going to be like that. We're going to be talking a lot of different things. We're going to be drinking beer.
Because you don't drink beer when you're around Bryan. It's really
Right.
sacrilegious.
It's only
so to speak.
because of Bryan.
It happens once or twice. Yeah. Trying to cut down.
Hey, so we're not going to play
40.
Cards Against Humanity, are we?
No.
We're cutting out the cards. I brought it, but Todd is lazy, so we're not going to play Cards Against Humanity. But if you haven't played Cards Against Humanity, you want to try it, go to cardsagainsthumanity.com, and you can download it for free.
Yep, they're the bomb.
Or you can pay $25, so don't be a bitch.
Yep.
Pay the money. Also, I want to give a shout out to USA Entertainment Agencies.com. Here, I'll pull it up on the screen capture. USA, there it is. You can go there and you can book an entertainer for weddings, festivals, fairs, corporate, college, media, whatever you like. You can get Doug T. You can have Doug T come and hypnotize your ass, Bryan. And make you think you're a girl.
Oh, yeah. Waste
Smoking
management.
weed, masturbating the vajayjay.
You know what? I have coworkers that do that whole hypnotize and go see the what do you call it? The
Like a show?
no, it's the
Psychic?
Psychic.
Yeah.
And they always invite me, and I'm like,
You would like
Does
Doug
it spook
Thompson
you?
is a hypnotist. And he gets in front of crowds
And
and,
he does
hypnotizes
it
people.
for therapy,
It's-
too. He also does it for therapy.
oh,
If people wanted to like quit smoking or whatever, right?
I'm not about that. I'm about calling them out. Don't you think? I think that's the way to do it. Is like,
Hey, they're saying that UFC fighters now get hypnotized before fights
really
to get in the right mindset.
Wow.
Well, and we're thinking about
Like
getting
it.
one of our youngest ones who's still sucking his thumb. We're thinking about getting him in there to see if Doug can work his mojo on him.
I would just love to get him hypnotized just to shut him up.
Ooh,
Just for
I like
a
that.
minute or two.
That's really mean.
That's
Wow.
what friends do, ladies and gentlemen. Friends jab.
You'll notice he likes
harsh-
to look right in the camera.
harshly.
He likes to
at their-
connect with people. That's right, Brian. If you want to make
I
connection,
interact.
you look
Yeah,
in
you
that
just look
camera.
right into the camera.
Yeah,
Just,
I noticed that. I look
Matt
like
likes.
just eyeball
fool
fuck
right
that
now.
thing.
Is it? Why is the camera winking at me?
That's right.
But anyway, if you want to schedule your own entertainer, go to USAEntertainmentAgency.com. That's it for the promos, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's it.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go
since
for
it's,
it.
Friday at almost 10 o'clock, and we just watched that. We should probably do a show. Iowa Hawkeyes won their first NCAA first round in 14 years.
That's pretty amazing.
Here's for the Hawks.
It is nice. Just for the Hawks.
Cheers.
Yeah, I usually don't cheer for the Hawks or anybody, but
We got to cheer for Iowa. Bottom
Something.
line, because Iowa State lost yesterday, so we got to cheer for one. And you and I still rolling too. So we
it
got
just
make
destroyed everybody that I work with. Everybody's grids. What do they call them? Not their grids.
Brackets.
Their brackets. Everybody had their brackets, and Iowa State was
Especially Iowans. Facebook was just blew up. Everybody going, "Oh shit,
it's all broken.
it's all broken." I was like, "You picked? Come on." I mean, Iowa State's great, but come on. I mean,
This would have been
your whole bracket is based off Iowa State.
I should have played it and just said no.
The crazy part is if Iowa State had won yesterday, Iowa won today, they were supposed to meet up in Sweet 16 possibly, right?
Well, I picked them going to the Final Four, but that's neither here nor there. But if you look at the statistics of yesterday of the Big 12, only one team out of 3 won yesterday in the first round.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Kansas is the only one. So Kansas
and
is the
good
only-
teams too.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's crazy. Crazy.
All right, so are we? This podcast was supposed to be. Todd dropped the ball. I know you guys aren't surprised by this. Tonight might be a Todd. Tonight might be a
God damn
kick
it, Todd.
Todd in the balls night. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet. But
Probably
Todd,
because I drove. I drove the
he
entire
did.
way up here.
He drove the entire
So
way.
what else should we do? Let's kick him in the balls.
And then you're driving back tomorrow, right?
Exactly.
All right. I just want to make sure.
Rock, paper, scissors.
I'm editing. Yeah. Anyway, but tonight's podcast is TED Talk themed. So if you don't know what TED Talks are, go to www.ted.com and you have all these different subjects. It could be technology, education, development. It could be about a fucking poem. That really, I don't know why, but the poem thing just drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah. There's been some great education ones on there. But by far, I mean, I know TED is kind of shady in some areas. They kind of like run their show a certain way, and they're kind of, confined by their own kind of rules in certain areas, rooming people with other people, and you can't have your own space and kind of weird things. But I think one of the biggest TED Talks I ever saw, this is 10 years ago, when some kid rolled into TED and he had a huge flat screen that was duct taped like a table, and it was hooked to a hard drive, a big tower underneath it. And he was showing how you could put pictures on this table, and you could, with touchscreen, move the pictures around and zoom in and zoom out and all this crazy stuff.
And it wouldn't lose any pixelation. It wouldn't lose any sharpness. Wow. So if a picture originally on the screen was, half inch by half inch, you could blow it up to the whole screen and it would be super sharp still.
So and it was like duct tape to the table. Like, it was not a fancy.
Like, he just rolled it out of the laboratory.
And he must have had, I think, 100 offers from multi-million-dollar computer companies saying, "We want your technology. Wow. Let's go."
Yeah,
that's one of the cooler ones.
Right after the talk, he was out in the hallway. I think there was another video, and he's like, "Yeah, I just met this guy here."
That's like the whole Tony Stark thing from Iron Man and the Avengers, how he blows everything up under the wall. And
right, what's that called? Is that's a screenless image?
Yeah,
Is that what that is?
Something like that, or is it just based on the table?
This is off of like what your iPad does. The zooming in and zooming out with touch screen.
But that was when that TED Talk came out. There wasn't anything like touch screen. There was
this
no
is like
touch
the first touch screen. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And he's just some kid. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, this thing, a love poem for lonely prime numbers. Okay, there's TED Talks like that. You don't have to watch it. You can just skip over that one. You can just go to a different one. But one of the ones that I really liked was, can we create new senses for humans? So you have your five senses, right? Your touch, smell, sight, hearing, and taste.
Yep.
Right? And David Engelman. Do you want to go tell him? Do you want me?
I'm not sure I should be the person.
I'll go tell him.
I might. You keep going.
Remember, circle jerk.
Oh, I do. I apologize. That's what happens when you don't have pop filters, right? What? What's wrong?
I just keep hearing like. It did like that a couple times, but I don't know.
Would this be better if I just did this?
It must be those nanomites.
The what?
Nanomites.
The nanobots?
Nanobots.
Nanobots?
Yeah.
Nanobites?
Nanobites.
But wouldn't you think that if somebody said, "Hey, you're not going to be living much longer. We're just going to see if this works. What do you think about that? It could shorten your life. It could lengthen it. What do you think?" I would be like, "Dude, go for it."
Yeah.
I would off myself if I had stage 4 cancer and I was going to slowly deteriorate over the next 3 to 6 months and slowly die and watch my family watch me suffer. Yeah. I'd be like, "I'll see you out behind the woodshed. Find me later and bury me."
I think it's easy.
Just take myself out.
I've said the same thing.
Yes.
I think it's easy for people to say that when we are in the level of health that we are. Mm-hmm. We're not at death's door. But the power of religion, the power of that suggestion that if you take your own life, you're going to hell. I mean, just once that seed is planted in your head, I don't care how much of an atheist you are. That thought goes through your mind.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because I've played this whole scenario out. If I had a terminal illness and I didn't want my family to have to deal with it, and then could I really take that step?
Well,
could I go with the lethal injection?
In terms of that, I think it's always been debated because you hear about these doctors that are requested to take somebody's life on request because they're suffering so bad. But it's, it's a person's decision for a doctor or somebody to take their life because it's requested. But then half these doctors get sued by the families going, well, who gave you that decision? Well, obviously the person that was dying gave me that decision, but in terms, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
We've talked about this a couple of times on the podcast, but there was a HBO special about, is it Oregon that has the right to die state? Is it Oregon or Washington?
Yeah.
I can't remember which one it is. It's in the Northeast for sure. But it showed this guy who was like really in bad shape. And this nurse got this enormous bottle of whatever medicine it was and broke out each capsule and dumped it into a glass of water. And he drank this entire glass. And it just kind of shuts you down. You slowly fall asleep. And then it just shuts down your breathing and shuts down your heart. It's super. You fall asleep first. And it had him sitting with his kids. And he's just going, oh, you guys, this is so wonderful. Thank you for being here. This is so much better. Thank you so much for being part of my life. It just faded away. I mean, it was heart-wrenching to watch, right? Mm-hmm. But could you imagine anything better than that? I mean, that'd be wonderful.
Death is heart-wrenching. There's no way for a loved one to go out without it being heart-wrenching. No one can ever paint me a perfect scenario where I'm like, yeah, you go and die, Dad. Good job, brother.
Right.
Everybody's...
But of course not. But you can definitely rationalize it and say, my dad is suffering horribly.
Yeah.
Right now, he's peacefully falling asleep. This is horrible. I don't want to be gone. But certainly him, instead of him sitting here going, please do something, take away this pain. I'm suffering. This is horrible. I hate my life. I want to die. I mean, that would be, to me, it sounds a hell of a lot worse than, hey, thank you so much for helping me transition to this next
if there's
phase.
a great way to go out, that was a good scenario.
I can picture easily, if I was dying and in serious shape, I could easily picture putting a gun to my head. Super easy.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
But do you think you face it if, say, somebody's having just problems in their life and they have no disease,
right?
And they choose to make that decision anyways?
I don't have.
Is there a judgment on that?
I don't have a problem with that. I think if we've talked about this as well, if life is that much of a struggle. Now, listen, I think that if you have your down in the dumps, and so somebody has an irrational thought, and it happens. You hear about teenagers making those really horrible choices when they really haven't lived long enough yet. Right. I think that if you're a functional adult and you've struggled with mental health, you've struggled with trying to find ways to solve the way you feel, and then it's still not working, I have no problem with somebody saying, hey, I gave my best shot, man. I don't have to tell you. I did the best I could.
You would hope there would be some type of help before that even got to that stage. But
well, you and I both know people with mental health issues, and that's all they do is struggle every day. And there's part of me that doesn't want them to be gone either. I like having them around. But if the time outside of their conversation with me, which we both enjoy, is them sitting there going, my life is shit, and I cannot figure out what to do, and these thoughts keep happening, no matter what meds I'm on, no matter what help I get, no matter who I talk to, I still find myself at this spot. I'm like, why would you keep fighting that? I just don't, I feel like it's selfish of me to say, oh, you can't do that. That's you shouldn't do that. You need to be here with us, and we'll make it work, and we'll figure something out. It feels selfish to me to make that kind of thought process because it's not making them happy.
Yeah, and your reality, Brian, is much different than my reality. How you interact with the world daily, how I interact with the world daily. I mean, it's for me to say to you, hey, brother, who are you dating? What? Your life is awesome in my eyes. Maybe through my eyes, I love your life. How could you possibly be down? Or I look at Todd's life. What could possibly be wrong with Todd's life? Dude, how can you be depressed? How could you even think about not wanting to be on this existence. But that's the terrible thing. People too easily say, "Oh no, I can judge you, and you shouldn't."
Right.
It's not God's plan for you to want to kill yourself. You know.
But you made a good point. My reality is not your reality. And for me to put that on you, my reality onto somebody else, well, it's like it has to do with just about anything in society. You're in poverty and you're on food stamps and you can't fucking pull yourself up by your bootstraps. I fucking bust my ass every day. You're not busting your ass. And so I can transfer what I feel is their lack. I can transfer my own feelings onto them and say, you're not doing what I did. I fucking did this. It's almost the same thing by saying, wait a second, my reality is you can fucking figure this stuff out. So get your shit together.
Yeah, why are you having such a hard time getting up in the morning and going to work? Why can't you be happy?
Wake up, go for a jog.
You have a husband who loves you.
Yeah.
You have kids who love you. They don't have any issues. Why are you unhappy? I have family members. I have people that I love who've told me they've been clinically depressed. Well, now they've been diagnosed as being clinically depressed, but they've said they've felt that way since they were a child. And so, can you imagine living every single day? Because you're doing it for someone else. I got to be here because of my boyfriend. I got to be here for my mom.
Just squeezing out the small amount of joy you find in your kids or your job or whatever it is that you do. That would be a tough road.
Yeah, this is such an uplifting podcast so far.
I know.
It's thoughtful. It's thoughtful.
It's the heartbreaking thing is that we're in society and in reality is that we're all kind of selfish. And we probably should be selfish in a sense because let's face it, I mean, nobody's controlling our lives but ourselves. And I know we're trying to take this to a serious note, but I mean,
you're absolutely right.
I'm gonna care about a lot of people, and I'm gonna do what I can, but for myself and trying to establish my life, I'm gonna keep myself happy,
right,
as best I can, I'm not saying that there aren't other issues and other diseases that keep people down from making decisions like that. It's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to, I can't put my faith into too many issues or too many subjects. What about my life? I'll give you a prime example. Speaking of prime, since we're talking about prime fear.
Love poetry for prime members.
Yes. Yeah, this is TED.com. What was it?
TED.com.
Yeah.
But I found myself in a situation this year. I've worked hard for my career and living in the state of Minnesota, they tax you pretty well. So I got to pay in taxes this year.
Oh, really?
And I claim zero. And I've shared this with a lot of people, and I just don't think it's fair.
Right.
I try to do all the right things. I support myself. I work hard, and I've gotten to this point, and then you don't claim anything. You're paying as much as you can in your taxes, and then they go, well, you owe us more. And I don't believe that's fair.
Right. You are being penalized for not having a wife and kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
you should see my federal and my state taxes I paid this year, and it's I'm just like, wow, really?
That right there is a depressing thing.
Exactly, but I'm fortunate that I have a great career and I'm doing all the right things, but it just I know it seems like bygones. You're like, wow, there's a lot of people that don't have that same type of career or not doing as well. But, I worked for that. I put my hard work in for years. And I feel like, the government's taking advantage of that a little bit.
Well, and I think that's a really good point because I think as long as you don't transfer, somebody who is getting money back or somebody who gets money from the government isn't necessarily taking from you. Maybe it's the government that we need to look at more than the takers and the givers in the sense of where's that money going to? And so if he has a good job, he's paying in, he's doing all these things, it's more important to focus on why do they need to tax you? Where's that money going to?
I almost feel like I have to have 8 kids just so I can get money back from the government anymore. And I'm not saying that to be by
sure,
but it kind of doubts your soul a little bit. You're working hard.
Sure.
Well, I wonder how much I'll have to pay in this year, even though I did everything right.
it makes you want to fall in line with some of those like hardline right things of like, fucking people just taken from the government. And I got to pay in. It's an easy it's an easy trap to fall into, I think, because you are working hard.
Yeah.
And you're still paying in, and you're still doing you feel like you're making the right choices, and you're giving back to society, and you're still they're asking for more all the time. Yeah. And then how about next year? Like you said, perfect example.
I will say this. If you want to feel good about yourself, make sure you have a good tax attorney.
True.
I went with a new tax attorney this year, and the things that she was telling me, she would say something. I'm not going to go into specifics. What if she's wrong? But she would say something. I'd say, my tax guy last year told me I couldn't do that, or they told me what percentage of your cell phone bill. And she goes, that's 10-year-old thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That type of thinking for taxes, that was when you were paying per minute. Now we have these huge data plans and things like that. And she goes, it's just so outdated. But because the tax system is so convoluted, it's thousands and thousands of pages, and it gets reinvented every year. How can anybody keep up with it? So who
wants to take that time?
You really need to have an excellent tax attorney.
It's almost like they expect you. They go, look how fucked up this is. Nobody's going to take the time to do it. We'll just push this through because nobody's going to make the time and effort to do it. Absolutely. Right. You have to think that's part of it.
Right.
And I've also...
Hold on a second. What? Dad. Honey, you need to talk so that we can discuss this and move on.
I was going to say that everybody keeps stealing.
2 years. But as an adult, known him as in a relationship as my tax attorney for the past 10 years or so. And he said that this new with Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, he said that, he goes, so you guys are both have insurance through your work, correct? We're both like, yeah. He was like, you can almost see like a physical thing of him going,
being
okay, good. That's like, they're having a fucking horrible, horrible time to the point where he was doing somebody's taxes and it was so fucked up. There's no one set of way of doing anything. There's like 100 ways of doing something. That they fixed something, they adjusted it, it got kicked back again. The two guys who own the tax agency took the information, went to the IRS in Cedar Rapids in front of a judge and said, this is what we're dealing with. How can you help us? Two guys who've been doing this. I know the guy who does my taxes, he used to work for Lynn County, and he used to he loves doing taxes. One of those weird people likes math. He would take his vacation time each year during tax season and just do taxes for people because he would make so much money over that time.
True.
And so now that he's retired, that's what he does for a living. And he was saying, we've never, ever seen anything like this before. And he's like, now listen, there's a ton of things that are awesome about the Affordable Care Act, but they certainly did not think about, it's like you go back to the idea of single payer. Why have all this fucking convoluted shit everywhere? Just have a single pair. And he can pay less because I pay more, or vice versa, or whatever. And there's one standard to go by. Instead of you have a tax guy who's been doing it for 25 years for fun.
Right.
And he's like, holy shit, I have to go in front of a judge so they can say, yeah, you're right. This is not working right. Do this instead, because they keep getting in trouble for it.
But and just recently, Iowa, or was it Cedar Rapids, that raised the gas tax? It was Iowa, correct?
Iowa, 10 cents a gallon. Iowa.
Now, I understand that you need to keep things current. And maybe that gas tax was set decades ago. But my question is, where is all of our tax money going? And something I've told the Todd for years is, every day there's at least one new person entering the workforce. There's at least one more person contributing to federal and to state taxes. And our infrastructure is falling apart. There was a huge special on how bridges are falling apart and how they've built bridges underneath bridges just to catch
the shit that's falling.
The shit from the first bridge so it doesn't hit the cars underneath. So this big question is, where is all of this fucking money going? We have property taxes. 50, 60 years ago, if somebody were to say to your grandparents,
Oh,
Hey, I know you own this farmstead and it is yours and you've never heard of property tax, but let me clue you in on a little something. Your great grandkids are not going to be able to just inherit
right.
this land.
Right.
They're not going to get it because you don't own it anymore.
That's good. That's a good point because I've asked questions like that about inheritance tax
Right.
when people pass away anymore. But it's been inherited to me, but I still owe the government money, even though it's been paid for probably twice.
Right.
And I just don't get that.
Well, see, and
how that
remember
all
the
works,
the
but-
inheritance tax or the death tax, as they rename
Right.
it, really only affects people who are multi-millionaires. So if
Wait
you were,
a second.
if,
So what you're saying is a small farmer.
no, I'm not saying a small farmer. I'm saying if a farmer owns 1,000,000 acres of land and he makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year,
yeah.
then his kid, they're not going to say, here's all your, they're going to tax them on that money. If you have a farm and you have
Right.
100 acres somewhere, which is
Yes.
$1 million farm, easy in Iowa or
Okay.
Minnesota, you don't get hammered by those taxes. It's
That's what I'm saying.
multi-million dollars.
That's why I'm bringing this up because I work with people who have relatives who are
Right.
getting anally fisted by this whole death tax. And I think the idea that it only affects huge farmers and huge farming families
I agree
is a
with that, too.
fallacy. It's somebody who might be completely middle class, right? You're making maybe $50,000-$60,000 by yourself a year, and all of a sudden your parents die because you didn't want anything to do with the farm, but that your parents hand you down the farm when they die.
Right.
All of a sudden you have to come up with all of this tax money. You have to pay out the fucking nose, and it could be 20 grand or 30 grand or
Right.
50 grand, but that's a shit ton of money to somebody who's middle class.
Exactly.
I don't have 20. I don't
Exactly.
even have 5 grand.
Is that
to
why
throw
people,
around
is that why
and
people
waste.
sell that land and then pay the taxes and be done with it? I mean, is that how people usually do
I
that?
think it's a lot easier anymore to sell the land just because you don't have to deal with it.
And I think that's kind of if you
But-
want to be conspiratorial about it, you can say, well, that's just one more way that huge farming conglomerates can swoop in and get farmland for cheap because the rightful inheritors of that land can't possibly pay that
it.
death tax.
Yeah.
Well, and see, I hear the opposite. I knew a guy whose mom, her sister, his aunt, died, and she was the last person in the family besides this guy's mother. And he got a call, and he was an auctioneer, and somebody said, "Hey, Aunt so and so's passed away. Your mom is the last inheritance, and so she has 125 acres on this and this plot." And so he called his mom and said, "Hey, how's it feel to be a millionaire?" And she goes, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You have 125 acres. If you want to sell, you're not going to farm this land. I'm not going to farm this land." He's too old. He's like, "We'll sell the land. You're going to be a millionaire at least one time over." And so in his mind, they had taxes to pay, but they had property. They had the property that they weren't going to use. So maybe it's a different set of circumstances.
Well,
If
that is
I'm
like
gonna inherit
apples and oranges. You're comparing apples and oranges. What I was saying, what I meant to say, if I didn't say it clearly enough, was you're inheriting a farm and you're planning on taking over the farm. If
Right.
you're planning on staying at the farm and not selling it because it's been in your family for so long, and hey, I just had to take it over, then you had to pay taxes.
So these people that you work with are going to take over the farm and start farming?
people that I know are paying a ton. It's just wrecking them. It's wrecking them. It's ruining their families because they have to come up with so much money, and it all comes down to inheriting a farm that should have been rightfully theirs. If their grandfather or grandmother paid that fucking farm off and they wanted to leave it to their grandson in their will, or leave it to anybody in their will,
Right. Doesn't matter.
they should just be able to do that. And I think that it's a horrible way for the state and for the government to get more taxes out of us
Because it's already been paid for.
because it's already been
already
taxed.
paid taxes.
You
on
shouldn't
it.
have,
Yeah.
and I thought that was a law. You can't be taxed on something twice.
Right.
I thought that's what the law was, but I'm not a tax.
But they tax your grandparents, not you. That's probably how they get around it.
And it's not,
So that's not
horrible.
taxing you twice. It's just
Well, the other question was that, so that's probably going to happen someday. So are people taking the responsibility to go, okay, what do we got to do to make sure that our kids or whoever's going to take over this land,
right,
that they don't get
screwed
in the end like
that's a good
that.
point.
And
I mean, that's a really good point. I agree with you, though.
though.
I don't know enough about it either. And you're right. Somebody shouldn't have to pay off the nose because they inherited something. But I wonder. But I mean, part of me says that I know of older people who have had farms, and I think they just kind of assume we've been paying on this for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years.
I think anybody
we've been
would.
paying this off. So why would we have to worry about this stuff later on without because we've already paid it all off, like you said. But at the same time, you probably want to prep. And I don't know enough about it and I feel like I'm talking out of my ass about it. But I would think that if you had somebody, if grandma and grandpa are getting close to death or grandpa's gone and grandma's getting close to going, then you would think that there'd be people rallying around them saying, okay, what needs to happen? How are we taking care of these things? What's going on?
Yeah.
So it's not all of a sudden, I'm getting fucking blasted because my grandfather's farm, he died and left it all to me, and I'm like, well, I want to farm this land. And I have 100 acres. Well,
Or rent it out or whatever.
Yeah.
I
I have a question for you guys. So let's say you have, let's say your dads are getting to that age to where he's going to be needing to go into a home. Okay. He's got a lot of money, whether it was because of a life insurance policy that your grandmother paid out or your family has money, period.
Or he's got Social Security or
I'm not saying
Right.
like millions of dollars. I'm saying like he saved $60,000 to $100,000.
right.
Okay, just kind of better than the average, right? Do you consider a scenario playing out like this to be horseshit? You tell your grandfather or your father, listen, we need to basically, you've been working since you were 14, you've been paying Social Security and federal income tax or federal, social, and state taxes your whole life. You are owed something. And for you to go into the nursing home, they're going to siphon out all of your money. They're going to liquidate everything that you have. And they're going to charge out the nose for your care. And then when all of that's done, then the state's going to take over and pay for the rest of your care. So, because we know this is going to happen, should we get everything out of your account, give it to one of your children?
Grandkids, yeah.
No, I mean you laugh about it, but I mean,
I'm laughing because it makes sense.
In one way, I would consider that somebody doing that like, dude, that's fucked. Why would you be? That's not the way the system's supposed to work out. But in the other way, because it's wrong, because that's the way the system is set up. So anything against how that law is or how that's set up is technically wrong. But morally, you worked your ass off your whole life. You've set up savings account. You set up life insurance to be able to give your kids something. So do you really think working your ass off every single day when you're 85, all of a sudden, all this hard work, all this money that you've saved is now being siphoned off? Mm-hmm. And nothing is going to your family. Nothing's going to your kids.
And part of me says that you've lived your life and saved so that later on in your life, you didn't have to work, that somebody could help care for you. So the money you saved is for that later on time in your life. I'm not working right now and saving money in my 401k so my kids can have something to live off of. They have their own lives to live and they have their own path to follow. And I'm not here to take care of them later on in life.
So
I don't see it that way.
In that scenario that I played out where a family member would say, hey, Dad, we need to get rid of all the money in your bank account. We need to sell your property.
So
according to, No, I'm just through your eyes. Do you think that's morally right or wrong? How would you feel about that?
I would feel wrong about it because that means the three of us pick up the slack. Our taxes go to the state to fill in the gap because he doesn't have the money to pay for it because he took the money and gave it to a child. he saved that $50,000, $100,000 so that he had something to live off of, however that living is. And we can have that's a whole other discussion about it to have. But he saved that money so that later on in his life, he didn't have to work and he was still okay.
I look at it as, you talk about that kind of situation, which brings us back to our first point about people taking their lives through doctors and whatnot. I mean, a lot of these people that worked their whole lives in that kind of situation, and now they get to that older age, they're still being taxed to live.
Right.
I don't get that. I mean, you paid for it your whole life through 401k.
So what do you mean by tax to live? So you are living off of Social Security and a 401k, maybe, and so you don't pay taxes.
But
on
you're still able to pay taxes every year. At tax time or whatever when it comes around, or is that just wiped out? Maybe I don't know enough about the information.
I thought that's not considered taxable income. That's savings and it's Social Security. But you know what? I don't know for sure.
So what happens? You retire and all of a sudden you stop doing taxes?
I don't know enough about that either. I mean, that's a good question.
We should ask our in-laws and find out.
So are we done? So when I decide to retire, I'm got all my money. I'm ready to go on vacation all the time.
Are you done paying taxes?
I'm done paying taxes.
That's a great question.
I think that's a false statement.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you still need to go in.
What time is it?
Because
401k is still taxed. You're
gonna make a phone call.
I was gonna call a grandparent and say, "Hey, you're retired? Are you paying taxes?"
I think everybody still has to pay taxes in some way of some form. But I don't know how it comes out. Maybe you already did that through the course of your life, or maybe it automatically comes out of some point of some time through Social Security.
We're gonna ask.
We're gonna ask live here.
Who are we asking?
Rick Sanborn. I know he's retired.
I don't know who that guy is.
Listen, if he's having sex, if there's like a lot of heavy breathing, we should just hang up.
Todd, how do you know this guy?
We had him on the podcast.
Oh, okay.
But I know he's retired, and he and I have been chatting back and forth.
Sounds like an amazing man.
While we're waiting for that fella. So
hello.
He hung up with. He's having sex. He's having sex. You go, Rick. Good job, buddy. Okay, so
I know we take this pretty deep.
I'm going to shift.
It's good.
That is a good conversation. I think it's a conversation that everybody should kind of have and have a plan for in the future, and not to dwell on all the negatives. But if you don't plan, if you don't talk to somebody that has some answers.
Hey, Rick's calling us back. Hold on a second.
Okay.
Hello, Rick. How are you?
Hey, Rick, you're live on TPSP's The Primal Screen podcast.
Rick.
It sounds like heavy breathing to me.
Yeah, I think he's having sex.
Rick Sanborn, are you there?
I don't know what you did. I think you butt dialed yourself.
I think he was trying to say you can't pay for the taxes.
I'm still fucking paying for taxes. God damn it, don't call me.
Cut me off already.
All right.
I'm wasting my minutes on my phone.
Now, like we were saying, that is a conversation that you need to have. And if you don't have that conversation, or if you don't go to somebody and ask those questions, then you're just placing yourself into the victim role.
Right.
It's a due diligence thing. That was a really good point,
Did you say due dildo?
Due diligence.
You need to enunciate better. That sounded horrible.
And that's why people kill themselves.
Here we go again.
Tax time.
Hello? Hello?
Do you have it on speaker there, Todd?
Yeah. You know what?
Why do you have assholes? Of course I have it on speaker.
Good. Why don't you turn that thing off? It's not working. You know what I got again the other day? My phone rang. I've said this a couple times, but my phone rang.
Yeah.
I pick it up. Hello, seniors.
No way.
Yes, I just turned 40.
Look at him, he's bald,
off.
man. He's fucking.
Do you ever get those phone calls?
Hey, I turned 40 in here in about 6 months, so am I going to get those? What is it?
I don't know. I hit off.
Harp calling you already?
He stays young. He stays young through younger women, though.
That's
the key.
Yeah. Well, you got healthy sexual appetite. Go for it. I don't even know what that.
Amen, brother.
Amen.
You got to keep
All
it
right,
healthy.
let's swerve back to the TED Talks that we were talking about earlier, and I started to bring this up with David Eagleman. All right, this was with can we create new senses for humans? And what he was saying,
We went down quite the tangent because
did.
you're coming back to this whole fucking sixth sense.
yeah,
Let's start over.
Yeah.
Let's start with this.
all right, what he is saying is that our environment is dictated by our biology. My reality is dictated by my biology, right?
Sure.
So he gives the example of a tick. That tick's reality is governed by the fact that it's deaf and blind. So its whole world is governed by heat and some
Blood.
acidic thing, right?
Okay.
And that's scientists call this little bubble that limit basically defines our senses as the Umwelt. Doesn't that sound kind of Swedish? The Umwelt.
It sounds German.
I like Swedish.
Maybe German.
Yeah. Sounds like a Nazi thing. Great job.
Yeah. But
I like
this
Nazi women,
guy
too.
is saying if you give your brain a certain type of stimuli, it will figure it out on its own how to recode that. So what he's doing is what he shows on the TED Talk for sure is this vest that lights up and buzzes, and it has pressure points all over the back of the vest and on the front. And people using this vest, a deaf man, for 2 hours a day, just after a few days, there was a guy who would say, salad dressing. I fucking forget what the word was, but let's just say salad dressing. And the deaf guy,
What an obscure word to use.
yeah,
Thousand Island.
Ranch.
right. But he would get the impulses from the vest, and he would write the word on the board.
Huh.
And just through training himself with that vest, getting stimuli on a part of our body that we're not used to feeling things, our brain can start encoding things so that just like a blind person putting their fingers over Braille, they're not thinking about each bump. It's being recoded, and they're reading the words as their fingers are going over the dots. And he's talking about how we only see 1/10 trillionth of the light spectrum, the total light spectrum. And what the fuck would that be like?
The Matrix.
Well, he's saying we could create a device. You know, there's radio waves going in and out of you constantly.
Right.
So if you had a device that was triggering stimuli on your body somehow to tell you that a cell phone call is coming at you or whatever, and you're able to actually have a phone call conversation, you're actually able to feel those signals going through you, and your brain is able to interpret it and hear that conversation. What do you think?
That's trippy.
Is it fucking too crazy?
No, I don't. I'm not. I mean, the human body is a pretty amazing machine. I'm not surprised that those kind of things can happen. I think I just recently heard somewhere too that they've now transferred somebody's thoughts from one person to another over the internet.
Ola and another word.
And
They thought the word, and the other person, so many however miles away, was like, yeah, this is the word that popped into my head.
Jeez.
and they had them blindfolded, isolated in a room.
I don't know why you'd have to be blindfolded if you're miles away.
So there's nothing. So there's no hearing, there's no seeing,
like
nothing.
Sensory
Popped
deprivation
into your head, and you say it out loud.
This feels like, I don't know if you guys watched the movie Lucy. And
Yeah,
Limit-
Oh yeah, good movie.
And
when she sees the things and she's
right,
yeah.
and it's all about Adderall, and now it's the Limitus drug that they portray. They've actually put it. In fact, this week I've seen it all over. It's like they finally found the drug that's actually legal that opens up more than 10% of your brain.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the movie Limitless, but
Yeah,
that's
I love Limitless.
I know that. Trust me, and not a druggie by any means, but I want Adderall right now just to get me on that level to use a little bit more of my brain. I take a lot of fish oil.
Because Adderall
That's not helping me
I'm
as
taking
much.
a lot of omega 3s.
I know, but it seems like, there is a not necessarily a drug, but a vitamin that feeds your brain and how you think faster.
Sure,
and you're very sharp at that point. But what if we had a drug that did more than that? I mean, it could open up everything.
Well, and
And
see,
you're just
Adderall helps you focus.
Right.
That's why it's the most abused drug on college campuses when it comes to test time. They're popping Adderall like crazy because they can just like zone in and they can get their shit
Well,
done.
housewives.
I don't think that should be
and
illegal.
stay-at-home
though.
fathers are abusing their children's Adderall.
Because it gets shit done. It's
Right.
well, the hard part is it's speed. It's just speed,
Right.
which is illegal. Another illegal thing that we can't have access to. You know,
You're
but
very anti-drug.
Why is it illegal? Do you think? 'Cause
Speed?
why is speed?
Well, yeah. I mean, really,
Because the government's afraid that people are going to hurt themselves. I mean, that's all it really comes down
we
to.
could say that about a lot of things. so-
Exactly. And we're not even talking about
Driving too fast.
And we're not even talking
Yes.
about opiates. We're not even talking about some of the worst drugs in the world are opiates that could be prescribed to you. You know, smoking a joint is nothing compared to you getting OxyContin for a month because you have a hip replacement surgery.
So my point is, you're a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer. We're all taxpayers. Why can't we have a unlimited access to the things that would
that we want?
help us, but not abuse it?
yeah.
Well, you're
You're a functional adult.
Right.
You can make choices for yourself. If you choose to abuse that drug and you get fucked up, you're on your own.
Well, you
Right.
could say that about smoking. You could say that about
Yeah.
drinking. You could say about a lot of things. But to have that access to your brain, I think that'd be light years ahead of ours.
I'm with you on that,
How much
for
would that
sure.
change our reality if I'm trying to have a conversation with Todd and I have a photographic memory, everything that I've seen I remember. I can go through and double check, or I know how to sift through the internet to find fact versus fiction. How many arguments, disputes, bullshit egos would it would be gone.
Right.
It would be gone. Photographic memories and just the ability to, this is what I want to do. I'm going to stay focused and do it instead of feeling very victimized. I a lot of times play the victim card. Like, I would love to lose weight. I would love to work out more. I would love to be a better dad. And yet I'm going to sit here and watch American Dad or something. You know what I mean? I choose the easy way out all the time, and I play the victim card because I'm like, well, it's so damn entertaining. I love that show. I work hard all day. I just want to come home and relax. But if you had that laser focus, if you knew what you wanted to do and you were doing it, and you could remember what you had trained yourself to do, how amazing would this world be? Similarly with biology, they have. I'm trying to think of the hormone that your body produces that naturally breaks down your muscle. Right?
Right.
If you've ever seen these pictures of those huge Arnold Schwarzenegger cows, have you seen those?
No.
It looks fake. That's how muscular
Sounds
and
like a
over
State Farm commercial here.
It looks like it should be fake. It's crazy.
All right, so the homework assignment kind of was to pick out 3 TED Talks a piece that we really liked, right? The next one that I picked out was a TED Talk by Marcin. I'm going to murder the last name, but here's the link. I'll have the link up. In fact, this guy's TED Talk isn't even on TED anymore. It isn't even on the TED website, but you can read about him. On the TED website is what you'll see. But if you go to YouTube and type in the open source economy. So this guy was an engineer and he gave it all up. He was born in another country, his family. Poland, came over here, graduated with an engineering degree, and all of a sudden he's like, you know what? I'm not very happy. I think I'm going to give all this up and I'm going to be a farmer. Right? So he becomes...
I've talked about doing that once.
He buys a farm,
Awesome.
got some land, and he starts out and his tractor breaks. And he pays for it to be repaired.
Oh, yeah.
And the tractor breaks again. And he pays for the repair, tractor breaks again. And pretty soon he's broke. Completely broke. And he realized that the things that we all need to feel
Function as society.
to function as a society, but to also feel like an individual, like I can take care of myself. I know these things to be able to take care of myself. We don't have those. So he created an open source economy is what it's called. And he chose 50 machines that you can create to help you do anything. So he recreated tractors. So something that he could fix on his own.
Right.
You know, something that you can air transport in a cargo Sealand van. You know what I'm talking about? One of those containers. You drop it in an impoverished third world country and somebody can look at the schematics on YouTube, not YouTube, but on the internet.
Use YouTube.
Yeah. And they can put together a tractor. They can put together a brick maker. You know, they can put together any of these 50 machines. And so my question, I think, is open source really the way to go? And even if things are open source, do you think it's going to change reality for enough people to really change their lives?
Not right now, but I think it will. I mean, I think I'm with Joe Rogan on this. I think at some point it's all going to kind of be free-ish. You know, you're going to need to have the natural resources to make bricks or have the skill to fix something or design something. But I would assume, I mean, you can find most of that stuff right now schematically on the internet, you know? Right. And I think you also with 3D printers.
Yeah.
I think 3D printers could be. I'm not quite with some of these people who think that at some point 3D printers are just going to like make the iPhone 9 for me in my living room while I watch. I doubt that's going to happen. Right. But I think that if somebody shows me the latest greatest knife to spread butter on my toast in the morning, right? And they say like, here's the plan, and I can hit a button and my 3D printer prints it out, and I'm like, hey, perfect. And I paid somebody 99 cents because it's their design, and I paid $1 for the plastic tubing that went into it because it fed into the little machine. I already bought the printer itself. Right. I got the newest, greatest butter spreading knife. That could be a possibility.
Doing a disservice though to people when you take away it's. I kind of view a 3D printer in the way that you're talking about it. I kind of view that stuff as like a scientific calculator or a graphing calculator. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, I know my mom is told, I use this example all the time, but back in the day when my mom she would tell me when she was in math class and they actually had to figure out a graph, you know, or what I was doing on my calculator. Mm-hmm. She said it would take 3 or 4 pages of calculations, and I had to understand the nuance of every transition of all the different calculations to get to that answer. Mm-hmm. But today, we don't have to understand the nuances.
We don't have to anymore.
We don't have to understand the depth or have that really acute understanding of what we're doing. We just have to understand, well, I had to hit this button, and then I had to hit the function key, and then I got to hit this other button. Right, so, like the 3D printer and the scientific graphing calculator, are we making things so convenient and so accessible, but are we creating a disservice? Like we're dumbing ourselves down just so that we can hit a button and, oh, hey, there's...
What's the difference between somebody making a knife in a factory for me to spread my butter better, or somebody saying, hey, I have this great thing right here, just print it off? to me, I don't see that as dumbing down. The whole math thing, I think, is important to understand the functions of what's happening, so you understand of how you got to the end of that problem. I think that when it comes to, I think maybe we're comparing kind of apples and oranges again. Whereas I think that printer and that it's almost like an accessibility thing, that instead of me paying some company to ship a job overseas to make this knife, and then it comes back to me and it takes all these transitions, now somebody can say, like, here's the plans, you have the resources, go ahead and print it out and just pay me $1. You know what I mean? I think that's different than, I don't have to understand, I have to understand where my knives now, I know where they come from. But just because I don't have the accessibility to make it doesn't mean that I don't understand how it's made. It's just kind of my accessibility to it.
Right. But then, you've given the example 50 or 100 years from now, or if something crazy were to happen and we don't have electricity, we don't have computers.
Yeah.
Holy shit. How do we do things?
Whittle a spoon.
Whittle a spoon. I think there's a lot of people who'd be like, what the fuck do I eat with?
A spork.
A spork.
Hey, I introduced all our kids to sporks today. They had no idea. Like, what's a spork?
Have you seen that new episode on TV called The Hacker or The Hacked?
No.
Oh, it's brilliant. It's nonstop, giving you ideas of how things can be done.
What channel is it on?
I think it's like True TV, something like that. But example would be, 100. There's 101 ways to use duct tape. Obviously, they show you all the ways to use duct tape. Mm-hmm. Or, for example, like we were just talking about the spork. If you have a fork and you need a spoon, wrap tinfoil around your fork. Now it's a spoon.
Just the tines.
Just little things. Now, when you describe source, do you mean like learning from that source, or just having that source to utilize?
Well,
I guess that's the wrong way to put it.
I love the fact that it's open source. It's free to use that knowledge that's already been accumulated. It's like going to a library, I guess.
Yes, and I totally agree with that. And I'll give you a prime example. Last weekend, we had to fix a car. We took it to our buddy's house, and we had it. The gear, it's the gear shifter where you have to replace a whole bar that runs your wheels all the way through. It's a bastard to take out and a bastard to put back in. But we looked it all up on YouTube, and we did it all ourselves. We don't know nothing. And I made myself look. We're underneath the car, oil all over our faces, grease everywhere. We're just dirty as hell. But 6 hours later, we finally got it done.
That's awesome.
And then we made more problems for ourselves. My buddy jacked up the car, and it slipped off the main frame, and then punctured the antifreeze, and so we had to replace the whole
Antifreeze line.
yeah, everything else. So we had to buy another part, but then we looked it up again. How do we replace this whole part now?
Isn't that crazy?
And we looked it up, and we did it all ourselves, and the car runs perfectly now.
Well, it
took time.
It still makes me nervous though, because I'm one of those people that I don't trust myself enough with. Maybe you had one of those guys in particular who's probably okay with cars, and he was like the brainier car guy of the three of you. I don't know.
We weren't brains on nothing. We just watched a YouTube video and we just kind of just mimicked.
And see, I just don't know enough that I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna give this to my mechanic. He knows what he's doing. If I know I'm a good mechanic and he's not going to fuck me, then I'll be more than happy to say I'll give him a couple extra $100, because I just don't trust myself and the 8 hours that I'm going to put in underneath the car.
The funny fact is that we decided to do this, so we got 3 estimates. So it was going to cost $1,000 because it's time consuming, and obviously, let's just face it, labor is $100 an hour. So we did it ourselves.
Sure.
The part was $250. We got it done in 6 hours, so there you go, and it saved us a lot of money.
Yeah,
we're doing it that way, and everything. Thank God,
it's just time, right?
Yeah, it's just time. But you know what? The funny how you bring up sourcing ourselves to learn a trade or a nick of a trade, especially trying to replace something or fix something, is that I wanted to learn that. I want to know. I am now more knowledged on not necessarily my vehicle because it was somebody else's vehicle, but I'm like, I think I can do that. I don't need to necessarily just go, well, I better take it into the shop. Maybe I could figure this out myself.
Or the source to go to.
Right. If you have the tools
Yeah.
for it and you're ready to get your hands dirty, absolutely.
Well, I thought about like changing my own brake pads. I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, I'll change
That's
my own.
easy.
That's not too bad.
Is it really?
I've heard
It's
that's
really easy.
And see,
yeah.
I remember helping my dad do it a long time ago, and it took fucking all day long, and it was our only car, and we didn't have brakes, so that car didn't get used that day. We couldn't go fucking anywhere, and so then we slowly figured it out over time. But we didn't have YouTube back. This is '88,
Right.
So we didn't have anything like that to source out
We
and
had
find it out.
We had the manual, driver's manual, or the manual for that car or whatever. But it's unbelievable. I couldn't believe it, and this is the first time I've ever used YouTube to actually change a big part in a car, and I don't know shit about
I
cars.
can't even tell you.
Dude, he learned all of our editing, all this stuff via YouTube.
If it wasn't for YouTube, he wouldn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
I everything came from YouTube. Learning how to work cameras, understanding microphones, what kinds of microphones, how to set up any of this stuff.
Right.
All from YouTube. All from how-to videos. It's nuts. It's nuts.
It's amazing.
Fixing my dryer at home.
Yeah.
Fixing electrical work.
Yeah.
How to install a
Everything.
three-way switch.
Well, and I'm still old school enough that, like, my wife got a pair of Bluetooth headphones the other day, and I said, "Hey, can I use them while I run around the house doing shit?" And she said, "Sure." And so I was like, "How do you sync it up?" And she's like, "I don't know." And so literally 30 seconds later, I had seen a YouTube video that said, all you gotta do is hold down this one button until it starts blinking red and blue, and then make sure your phone reads it and connects it. And what would have taken me trying to find the
reading the
owner's
manual,
trying to find the owner's manual, trying to go through it all. I just typed in Sony whatever, and there was a YouTube video on it, or there was just read it, and it said push this one button. So then we haven't even watched a 1.5 minute video. It just told me how fast it was.
And I think that's where we differ in society and technology from your kids and where we are now. We're so used to well, we don't know what to do. Now your kids and kids that are, Dad, here's what you do.
Right.
Dad, here's what you do. I saw on YouTube. This is what you do. And
Well, he does it to me all
My
the time.
9-year-old son got me set up on Skype.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old son.
Oh, all the time he's like, "Well, have you YouTubed it?" I'm like, "Oh, fuck yeah, YouTube." I just forget. I am. I hate to say I'm too ignorant, but part of me thinks that I'm just
We're
not
all
in,
ignorant.
I'm not in that.
Yeah.
I'm not in that.
We're all ignorant.
I'm not in that modern mindset.
I
of,
know.
It's like, your grandparents can't use an iPad. What the fuck?
Right.
iPad. They fucking had rotary phones and no TV, and they listen to the radio
For entertainment.
For
yeah.
entertainment. So how can you assume they're going to use an iPad?
sourcing. They'd have people on the radio describing how to change a radiator or anything because that's all they had back then. But yeah, it's so interesting how you brought that up, sourcing. That's where the society's going. And so it's for an engineer to just say, give up and I'm going to be a farmer. Why couldn't all of us do that? I mean, he learned how to fix it.
Do you know how simple life would be? I mean, seriously. And I don't mean that. My life's not going to be easier because farming is a hard job.
Yeah.
But it literally is early to bed, early rise, and you bust your ass in between, and hopefully you reap what you sow, literally. And you have something from that, But the hard part is that even in farming now, it's fucking co-opted and genetically altered. So are you really gonna? So you and I are like, hey, let's grow corn. What kind of corn do you want to grow? Fuel corn, feed corn,
Right.
Where are you going to
popcorn, sweet corn. What the fuck do you want to?
Where are you going to get the seed from?
Yeah.
Right.
You have to buy seed. You have to eat. You have to research that and talk to your buddies that have been doing it for over years.
Yeah.
And
I have family members who they've been farmers their whole lives.
yeah.
And
I haven't seen a broke farmer yet. Just FYI.
Yeah, exactly.
They all have some sort of money They don't let you know they have money, but they
Well, I think you
a
have
lot of things written off
I
in
think
so
you
many
have
ways.
The
farmers
government
that
takes care of
make
them
it.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
I think you have farmers that there's like this invisible line
Mm-hmm.
of you have to have so much. You have to have
Right.
so much produce. You have to have so much corn. You have to have so much of whatever to bring to the grain,
The co-op.
Right.
the co-op. Like I said, some of my family members, I was talking to them last year about this. We had a woman on. She had written a book, America's Two-Headed Pig. Okay. She grew up here in Iowa. Her dad was a farm vet.
We're in Minnesota, by the way. Just,
I'm sorry. I forgot they were in
Same.
Minnesota. Okay, well, she grew up in Iowa. Anyway,
what did I say about Iowa girls in Minnesota? Sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
They all work at Hooters. Anyway.
yeah. But her dad had brought home an actual two-headed pig, right? And she was trying to nurse this pig with the bottle and the milk and all that stuff. And one head, they would fight. The heads would fight over the bottle. And what she equivalates our society to is these two heads. Like we fight over stuff instead of just going, okay, your turn. You do what you need to do. Okay, are you done? Okay, good. Now it's my turn. And basically, the pig starved, and she brought it and she wrote a book about all the changes that she's seen because she moved away from Iowa, went up to college, and now she lives out on the East Coast,
Massachusetts.
And when she came back to visit her family recently, she was really surprised at how everything was like a monoculture. Everything was corn or everything was soybeans.
Right.
Where when she remembers growing up, every field was a different crop.
Right.
Or at least they were rotated between beans and corn.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just, to me, it's, I don't know where I was going with that point.
It's greed and money. I mean, that's all it comes down to for me. Because, if you have somebody saying, I changed this one little gene in this corn, so now it's my corn. And so you have to buy, if you want this corn, you got to buy it from me. Oh, and by the way, if that blows over into that field and your corn gets pollinated by my corn, that's mine too. And you need to pay me for that.
Did you hear about that
I
ruling?
didn't hear. No.
A Supreme Court judge ruled on
Monsanto's side.
A case for Monsanto. If you have an organic farmer, right, or if you have any farmer, and there's farms around that farm that has Monsanto seed, and the wind blows, and
It pollinates.
and it pollinates the other corn.
Yep.
The corn that grows now has been pollinated by Monsanto seed. So now that farmer owes Monsanto.
What?
And the judge ruled in favor of Monsanto.
Wow.
I have a feeling it's going to change because there's been...
I can't believe
Sanborn
it
made a
was
good
that
point
way.
of saying that Monsanto has gotten such a bad rap that they've revamped their PR on TV. I mean, they're actively working to try to change their people's perception of them because those kind of things are happening. They're so shady and make us go, what the fuck are you talking about? The wind blew, and so somehow I owe somebody money, or some proprietary property rights have now been transferred. What the fuck are you talking about? That's the hard part, is that...
That's the hard part. What?
Nothing. What do you need, Henry?
Do you have any tweezers? I have a sliver sticking on my foot.
How are you going to sliver in your foot if you're laying
Is there
down going to bed?
I don't know. I can see it's poking out. I can see it right here, but I can't grab it with my.
I got a tweet. I got a
Right here.
whatever right here. That'll work.
Come here, Henry. I don't want those big nasty nail. Those are Brian's nasty.
They're not nasty.
I don't want those. Get your foot over here so I can see what you're talking about.
Dad, I don't want you.
Then go downstairs and screech and whine. I don't want to hear it.
It's right there. You kind of see. You can kind of see it sticking out.
I don't see Jack.
I would love it if you just went.
It's right there, Dad. It hurts like crap. Dad.
You know what, Henry? Don't feel bad. I have a grown woman that I work with who can't swear either. It hurts like crap.
He knows better.
Ow! Oh, Dad, that hurt like crack.
And over the top. That's how she does her gig. And I think that Graham Hancock was more of like, this is how I believe, this is what I think you should do, and this is my opinion. And because it was drug related, I assume
A new perspective on the number 3000, I believe, is the Sarah Silverman speech. There's a lot of banned TED Talks.
those are my two favorite projects. Are the most two well known, I guess. I haven't looked at all the banned ones totally,
But
those two are good because they're both very bright. Like you said, Sarah Silverman's really a thoughtful, honest, straightforward person, and Graham Hancock is no fucking slouch.
Right.
The guy is a genius.
and Graham Hancock, you can go to YouTube and type in "The War on Consciousness," or you can just type in "banned TED Talk," and his is the first one that pops up.
Yeah.
This is the first one that pops up.
Again, it's Graham Hancock and Joe Rogan and a handful of people who've kind of
They've
opened my
really
eyes to
changed
say,
your perspective.
guess what? You have been fed a load of shit. And even now, when I think about, we were talking about, Denver today and vaporizers and different ways of consuming cannabis, there's still this little thing in my head that goes, wait a second. Don't you know what your brain looks like on drugs? It's those two frying eggs. It's those two eggs frying in the pan. That's my first thought. I mean, I have that drilled into my head. I have my mom. I can remember my mom talking about people who are tripping out on acid or mushrooms, jumping off of buildings and killing themselves if they thought they could fly.
Oh, yeah,
or
that was
all
a very
these things.
popular one.
All these things happening, and now I'm going, no. If you're some dumbass who shouldn't be taking acid in the first place. It's
called natural
maybe
selection.
it's called natural selection. But if I'm going to sit down and Bryan is a buddy, and so he's going to sit here and take care of you and I while we trip out on acid. We're in a mellow setting. Everything's chill and relax. We know he's going to look out for us. We might flop around and climb the walls. Where the fuck is going to happen?
Dude, I hope I'm
but
not flopping around.
He's not going to let us go out in the
movie.
He's not going to let us go out in the street and fucking stop traffic. We're not going to run around the backyard in our underwear. You know what I'm saying?
I do that anyway.
You set yourself up for it to be a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You know,
it's your intentions.
And you talked about it's your intentions, and you talked about that today earlier about I think you were bringing up to Bryan that there's a new book out saying that drug use. They're saying now if they gave a rat water and then cocaine water in a cage, it did the cocaine water until it died.
Well, that's
but
what
if you gave a rat,
that's what all of our that's what all of our laws are based off of. That's
but
why
if you give
so many drugs are banned.
a rat utopia, well, there's lots of fun things to do. It's not going to take
a lot of hot little female rats.
It might hit the cocaine water once in a while, but it has lots of other distractions that it's not going to worry about getting cocaine all the time. Right. It's going to live its life.
Which says a lot about
society.
Society. And are we treating a symptom or are we going after the cause of the problem?
Right. So it's all about intent. So, I mean, again, I would love an opportunity to try some of those things if in a safe place. And I think even Joe Rogan said that. He's like, oh my God, you can't just say, hey, you got some acid and just go in your apartment and drop it. Why would you ever do that? You have to have a good, good frame of mind.
He has a frame of mind around that, and he's talked to people. There's so much.
That's what brings back sourcing again. You need to look it up on YouTube and know how to drop acid.
Yeah, no, you're right. Though.
It might be a source.
I was looking up.
Do you think
ayahuasca trips?
Find a smart person and figure out what they did.
Do you think people that actually don't do drugs, maybe try because who cares and I want to do it, but do they know exactly how to do it without actually watching somebody or outsourcing it and looking it up? And I'm sure there's plenty of YouTube videos of people dropping acid.
Right.
Back in the day, what we used to have back in the day and what some cultures still have is that witch doctor, that shaman, that leader that said, this is part of our culture. We've done it for 1,000 years. I know how to brew this ayahuasca. Let me talk you through the steps. you just listen. We had to clap again so that we were able to sync up with the video.
Where's the clapper?
We can just clap hanging around. I don't care.
Oh, I like doing this. It's more fun.
So it's all recording. Sounds good.
You did not follow directions today.
Most kids don't. Similar. His TED Talk is how to run a company with almost no rules.
Dude, you'll have to watch this another time when you get a chance. It's nuts.
It's really fascinating. And really the big thing is that he agrees a lot with what I've said previously. Mm-hmm. All right, no.
Well,
that was just a nice. That was just actually a nice side effect. But the big thing is that
Sure, somebody listen to this and what the fuck are these guys talking about?
these guys.
They're crazy. They're cuckoo.
The big thing was he said.
Let's get to the
egos.
sex.
Ego. Yeah. Where's that Hooters girl? I was promised Hooters.
She was on the edge too. You could tell she was kind of like, are these a bunch of creeps
are these
or
a
are
bunch of
they
creepers?
legit? She
I'm
was
sure.
right on the edge.
All right, I don't want to go down
But
that.
the idea though
path
is that
right
we
now.
gave her our email. Now we didn't ask her for her email.
Oh, okay.
We gave her our stuff.
Oh,
Do you think that she's gonna call?
no.
I don't know. I do. I think she'll
Sure,
email.
that's a
I think she'll email
strong
me.
no.
What's an email address? It's not like, hey, here's my phone number.
Yeah.
It's an email.
Yeah. And-
if you're
and
serious about this, email me.
I was
Well,
I thought it was a
you
safe
kinda
move
left
by
it-
saying, you know
you
what,
kinda-
I'm from Cedar Rapids.
You could have just left it in her card. Can we get your email and email you sometimes if you wanted to participate in our?
I think it's better to say, here's my email address. Here's our
But there's
website.
you
It's
know-
legit.
But you were in a conglomerate public place where she gets that nonstop. So it
yeah.
Oh, well,
She-
see, my hope was
yeah.
that it wasn't a normal, like, hey, baby.
right, but
Here's my
Yeah,
digit. Here's
but
my
how
digits.
many
Hit me up
people
sometime.
think the exact same
Right.
thing that you just thought?
yeah.
What?
That was part of the conversation I wanted to have with her was how many times do people think, oh, well, I'm sure nobody says this to her.
Yeah. Right.
It's completely legit and
Yeah,
innocent.
but that's more douchebaggy-ish kind of stuff. This isn't saying, hey, we want you on a podcast. Give me shoot me an email sometime. We can have you on a podcast. It's not like, hey, do you want to go out sometime? I doubt she's ever been asked to be on a podcast before.
Well, yeah, she looked a little
Shocked.
bit like, what's a podcast?
Yeah.
So I doubt that she'd been asked. But back to
You would have
the
been a lot
TED
more.
Talk.
You know what? I know a couple guys that I could hook you up with. That maybe it'd be a lot easier. Here's our card. Give us a call.
Yeah, but you know what? nobody carries a card anymore.
What?
Hey, I gave you 100
I
business cards.
I looked at him like he did. He gave me huge stacks of our new business cards,
Yeah.
and I forgot them at home.
And I said,
Oh,
hey,
there you go.
put some of these in your car. Because that's where you are a lot of the time when you're out and about.
Yeah.
That's where all mine are.
That's where mine are
It's
too.
baby steps. We learn, don't we? All right.
Yeah, we're
It's
still
all right.
learning.
Neither here.
It's
nor
Anyways,
the
go ahead.
ego. It's
So
the
this
ego.
guy's talking about
Ricardo Sumler is talking about how he reinvented his business.
It's a multi-international business, too. It's a huge business.
Huge business. And he was thinking, why do we need to do this? Why do I need to know when you come into work? Why do I need to know when you leave? It's a power play. It's all about ego.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big thing, was that everything broke down from, if you just remove your ego, if all of these leaders of industry were to just say, all we care about is the product. All we care about is getting these things out
Makes
to the
sense.
consumers.
makes sense.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's take care of the people. One of the things that I used to be a supervisor, and one of the things that my old boss thought was crazy, he would say, Matt, how can we increase motivation and positivity here in the workplace? Now, keep in mind, we have no money to work with. So just take money off the table.
Right.
Like what other things do you think could increase morale? And I said, honestly, everything's a dog and pony show except for time. Time is the only thing that you could give somebody that is worth anything. So if you were to say, these are our expectations. Our goal is you need to produce X amount of coils a day.
In this time.
And as long as those coils are quality, it won't work if people just bust out the product and it's shit. But if you put out a quality product and you meet our goal, now, you know what? Let's get a little greedy. Let's put the goal above what you need. Every day you have a goal. Now, if 5 people on this one machine hit their goal, they get paid for their full 40 hours, but they get to go home early.
Right.
They're done. Yeah. What's it matter to us? They've actually produced more than what we expected them to produce.
Right. Yeah.
And we're giving them the one thing that we can't really pay for, and that's time. So if you're not going to pay them anymore, pay them the exact same amount, but give them some time to spend however they want it. Mm-hmm. He goes, no, that's ridiculous. But to me, it's no skin off your nose as a company.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, didn't you bring up a situation about our senses? And one of the biggest ones is, touch, feeling, whatever.
Right.
But the biggest thing in bigger conglomerate companies, such as that, maybe, is listening. Listening to your workers. Listening I won't say listening of their gripes and their concerns, but listening of how we can do this better. In every scenario. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those scenarios. I think by listening, time's one of those. And being rewarded by getting it done early and still meeting your goals. It's a bonus because most of those workers were like, well, hell, let's get this done early and go home.
Yeah, let's not
and we'll still get paid the same.
It's almost like a natural.
Let's just work through break and we'll get it done. It's our choice.
It's their choice. Yeah.
It's almost like a natural consequence for something.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to go home early. Let's go.
But a lot of these, I watched a couple episodes, and speaking of episodes of Undercover Boss, that Waste Management was one of the first shows to ever appear on Undercover Boss, and it was a hero overnight kind of an episode, and I had people calling me like, "Oh, what a great company to work for," and I was skeptical about it. I go, "Yeah, it is a great company to work for," and they had one undercover boss, which was our CEO of operations at the time, and when I watched that episode, he went in undercover, listening to our people and working the jobs they did, how to make our jobs or their jobs better and our company better by listening to what their solutions would be. And so he came across as a person that listened to the issues and fixed them right away and rewarded the people that were above and beyond in
contributing to the solution.
Exactly. And I looked at it a different way. I look at it as a resume to the whole damn world. And 2 weeks later, he was gone.
Really?
Yeah, or I got phone calls like, "Oh, that guy sounds awesome. I wish I worked for a company like that." I go, he's going to be gone in 2 weeks. He just put his resume to the whole world. Donald Trump probably called him up and goes,
"Oh, so you meant like he's gone, like somebody scooped him up."
Somebody scooped him up and he's gone. Okay. Yeah, he's probably making good money with Waste Management, but let's face it, money talks.
Sure.
So anybody watching that episode would be like, we need that guy. That guy needs to be working for us. Go get him.
Right. Some headhunter.
As much as he said, "No, I'm not leaving Waste Management. If I was getting $3 million a year, I'm leaving Waste Management. I don't care what you're..."
Right. Yeah.
And everybody's like, "What do you mean that he was putting his resume?" I go, he just told the world how good a person he is and what our company is all about. You don't think half of these industries are looking for that sort of person to be running their company?
Right.
Absolutely.
I never thought of undercover boss as
Yeah.
a resume builder,
It
an
is,
application
truly
to
is.
the world
Yeah.
for the bosses.
Yeah. Well, this was David Steiner's the president of the company, but the CE or the COO, how you call it, was obviously the operations side of it. And yeah, took one phone call and he was out of there.
Wow. But you know what?
I'll never leave waste management. Whatever.
It's like anything, though. But maybe it was time. Maybe he really was that good, and he needed to step up into a position
Right.
where he can help another company out. I mean, that's how it's supposed to work.
And it probably was that situation, but I'm sure money had a lot to do with that.
Yeah.
You know, and especially his difficult time with it. He has some family issues as well as anybody has family issues, but it probably met his needs a little bit better, and he was gone. But I was always skeptical. I'm like, put me on there, you know, let the world see how good a person I am, and Donald Trump will be calling me.
Oh God, I don't want. Again, Donald Trump's another one of those guys who everybody's like puts him out there as this like mogul, and he inherited almost all of his wealth.
Yeah,
And
11 bankruptcies. I mean,
Wait a second. What'd you say?
11 bankruptcies.
11.
Bankruptcies. Yeah.
wow.
I'll get it right this time. All right. No, I'll get it right this time.
Well, that's what you've talked about with you and your partner with TPSP Productions.
Yeah.
You don't want to go into it and say, okay, give me a loan for $25,000. Let's do a studio. Let's have all these things ready to go. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, so we're not paying the bills. So now we're bankrupt. And so we filed Chapter 11 or Chapter 13. Well, there goes your business.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that would be devastating
That's the little
to
guy.
me and my family,
Right.
you know? But why wasn't that more devastating to somebody who has filed bankruptcy 11 times? I mean, you would think after twice, 3 times, somebody
A company would say like, oh yeah, we're not
somebody
giving you
would
any more
say, a
money.
bank, a legitimately smart bank would say, okay, you filed bankruptcy 3 times, dude. How exactly is this deal different than all the other deals?
Well, but now he's successful. So I guess some people would say that, well, see, we gave him his 12th shot and it worked out.
Or he sold his wealth.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just know that people are like, he's not that great of a businessman. Just because he had a gazillion dollars to start out with, and then he kept pumping it into things, hoping they worked to make more gazillions of dollars.
I think you're absolutely right there, is that he had the money backbone, and he had the right people to make those decisions for him. And maybe they were bad decisions at first, but now he's got the right people in place to
Right.
make him
That's not what you know, it's who you know.
And he'll say that nonstop. He's just he's a political mind and on business, but he doesn't run the show.
He's
got plenty of people to do that for him.
sometimes.
is he a douche because of his hair?
No, it's the comments. It's the comments he makes. It's the comments of like, come on, you need to pick yourself up and let's get moving here. You're fucking lazy. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
thanks. You know, you sat back and inherited your wealth and then took multiple chances on different things. Some kid growing up in an inner city that has no step up at all, has a great idea, but nobody's going to back him. And you're going to say, hey, dude,
Quit being lazy.
yeah, come on, let's go. Be realistic and get a job at Burger King. Let's fucking call this even.
Well, do you think it like by having The Apprentice for him signifies him was like, oh, anybody can do it, or is he just trying to explain like, well, you know, it's not as hard as it looks, or is it easy as it looks, or
I think The Apprentice
I don't know.
is a humongous jerk off session.
It is. That's how
That's
I
all.
look
That's
at
all.
it.
They sit in their
No, and I mean for him in particular.
But he talks
I am
about
this
like,
huge business. I know everything. So everybody come to me, and at
Right.
the end, I tell you who's good and who's bad because I got it all fucking figured out. Well, give me a break. You know, and I mean, I would actually say that The Apprentice in the very beginning when they had people like
entrepreneurs.
Yeah, you had real people. You had
right.
real people that weren't
Right.
stars or
Yeah,
what all this
not-
other
not the
bullshit.
stars.
People who were like, "Wait a second, this guy obviously is a businessman. I might be able to learn from him."
Yeah.
You know, and try to figure things out. That I want to say the first couple of seasons, I remember watching it going, "Oh, these are people who are really trying to get a step up and trying to learn and make a difference for themselves." Now it's just like it's
Do you think
ridiculous.
that's a stepping stone, or maybe Trump was onto something? Because one of the biggest, I don't know if you guys watch Shark Tank.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
Every now and
Yes,
then.
yeah.
Those millionaires who are already successful, and everybody that pitches to them, and they have to feed a little bit of money to get a little percentage. That's brilliant.
I think that, to me, Shark Tank is a good one because it really kind of shows you what is a whacked out idea, and somebody going, "I have the best idea ever," and people going, "Listen, I know you think this is really
know what?
awesome, but
There's-
guess what? There's a reality check for you."
There's definitely that, but there's also, you can easily see it from the other point of view of me having a lot of money and going, I'm fucking tapped out of ideas. What's my next golden egg?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Let's hold a contest where people bring in their amazing ideas, and I'll just pick and choose and go, all right, now you have a long way to go, but because I have a shitload of money, I will
Exactly.
make your dreams come true, but
I'll take half of your money.
I want half of your fucking idea. Right?
That's true, but that's probably genius.
Yeah,
It is genius.
because but it reminds me of like a band who's starting out, who's like willing to sell their souls to the devil with a record company because they just want their record on
Right.
the air so they can become famous rock stars. So they say, "Here you go. Here are all my rights to all my music. Get me on the radio."
Yeah. Well, you know what? If you want a good example of a great boss, go to TED.com and look up how to run a company with almost no rules. And it was kind of neat because at the end, the host of TED comes up and he's asking this guy some questions, and he goes, how can we help you? How can we just shove this down? But I mean, in my own words, what he said was, how can we fucking shove this idea down everyone's fucking throat? It's I love what you're doing. It seems to really be working for you, but how can we make it so it's mandatory and we shove it down everybody's throat? And what this guy said is, no. I don't need anything from anybody. I don't want you to do anything.
Huh.
This has to happen because you want it, and it has to start out small and grow for it
Be really organic.
on its own. Because as soon as you force it on somebody, it's not what I've created.
And it's segmented too. It can't work for every type of position, or are they trying to make it sound like it can work for every? Or
I have no idea.
It's a multi-conglomerate corporation that when he kept saying things like, "Well, we changed this thing," and we thought, "Well, hey, let's change this thing." And then we thought about this thing, and hey, you know what? Let's just change this thing. And I kept going like, "What the fuck is he doing?" In the sense of I have a kind of standard idea of businesses that I've worked for in the past of how they run their business, and it's from the top down. You have the guy at the top who's making a fuckload of money, and everybody else is making a little bit down below him, right? And this is a different thing. People are still making money, but people become kind of empowered and in control of kind of their own way of figuring things out, and it empowers you to be a better employee. But even then, he keeps going down another rabbit hole. Well, if we did this, let's do this. And I'm like, oh my God, how the fuck are you going to figure that out? But he just kept going, well, if we've done this step, then we can do this step.
Right.
So that's starting out small and people wanting to do it is probably the key.
Yeah, it's a great TED Talk. The part where I was patting myself on the back at the beginning when I mentioned this guy is because I've talked to you about there's an untapped resource in our communities, and that's the senior citizens.
The elderly.
And how I can think of my grandmother or my grandfather, and all they want to do is talk. All they want to do is share their experiences, right? Mm-hmm. And if we were to have, because he talks about how he changed the schools in his area, how he experimented, and he brought in a lot of people, that had all of this seasoned knowledge in whatever it was, specialty. And they came in and they just wanted to be with the kids and they just wanted to be able to teach the kids. And it was a very awesome thing. Whereas right now we're fighting with the ideas that we have one teacher per 30 kids in a classroom or 40 kids in a classroom and kids are fucking crazy and there's no structure at home. But if you had older people coming in going, I was an engineer for 40 years.
Yeah.
Let me show you guys some old school stuff. I mean, you see it sometimes with like woodworking classes, but I don't think you see it in every facet of our society. Nursing. I mean, when was the last time you saw like a grandmother who was a nurse that came in and was like, hey, let me donate my time.
Man, I think you make a great point. Is the fact that, and I think my father told me this, is that all the trade shops are going away,
Right?
and everybody's afraid to get their hands dirty anymore, to get in there and like mechanics or engineers, and it's all becoming electronic anymore, and nobody wants to learn the hard way anymore. So how to design? I remember, can you imagine the railroad and all the workers and designs that had to go in, all of that? I mean, that was a big. It still is a big deal, but the trade society, the trade workers, are being gradually eliminated, and somebody told me a long time ago that once those are eliminated, the need for that's going to be coming back.
Right.
Well,
At
Mike
some
Rowe,
point.
I
is
think,
it Mike
I
Rowe?
think part of it is that it all comes down to money. This is probably 7-8 years ago.
Everybody wants their money
I
now.
heard a thing on NPR of a guy saying, he was like, well, I was going to lose my business. And they said, why? No, I did lose my business. Well, why would it happen? Well, I made this one spring. I said, oh, okay. Well, what's wrong with that? Well, I made this one spring and they used it for 3 or 4 different things. And it kind of kept me afloat. I had my own business. I survived. My family was okay. You know, we weren't super wealthy, but we could do okay. And then another company came in from China and said, we can make the same spring and it'll be cheaper. And the lady's like, okay, but you couldn't go to the people that you sold things to and say, hey, so this is American made, stick with us, kind of thing. And she goes, well, he's like, well, we did like hundreds of thousands of these springs. She's like, okay. He goes, so I was charging them 15 cents a spring. She goes, okay, that sounds reasonable. They were doing it for 2 pennies a spring.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It's like
2 cents.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but 13 cents on 100,000 springs,
right,
from one order. Next thing you know, my business is done. Yeah. And so, I mean, part of me thinks that part of that trade issue is somebody saying, Horrible Bosses 2. Have you seen that movie recently?
Yeah,
okay.
I love it.
Again, same thing. Horrible Bosses 2. This is American made. We just started this own company. We're going to do it all here.
Right.
Hire American workers. And these companies are like, why would you ever do that? You can make so much money if you ship it to China. It's the same thing. Did you guys hear about Apple? Apple made $18 billion in 1 quarter of the year.
Wow.
The most money ever made by a corporation in the history of the world. $18 billion in a 4-month period. 4-month period.
Quarter is
3.
4.
3. Okay.
There's 4 quarters.
3 months each quarter.
Yeah.
Hey.
We'll go
3
with
times
that.
4 is 12.
And I didn't even need my scientific calculator.
That's how much. And so somebody said, so you couldn't take 1% of that and have those factories here be made by Americans? And then they said that on average it'd be like, I think it was like $25 or $30 more for an iPhone if it was made here, or an iWatch, or whatever it is that Apple makes, the computers. Yeah. If they're made here, I guarantee you, I love Apple anyways, but I guarantee you that I would make sure I never bought fucking anything else if it was made here.
Sure.
And to know that they're killing themselves on top of it to make it
extremely expensive.
You what?
Who gives a shit about $25? It's already extremely expensive. If you're dishing out $350. I know you always go back to $350 for the sports iWatch, but they're saying $900 iWatches
For the fancy one, the regular?
over $1,000 for
Yeah.
one. If you're willing to spend that much for a watch, how about another $25? Oh, is that just the tax? Because sure, no big deal.
Right.
If I got the funds to pay for a $1,000 watch,
And how many people would say like, oh, so you're going to guarantee me this is made in America by Americans and I'm buying an American product?
Yeah, right.
Here's my $25. I mean, I know that I would feel that way about it.
right?
Don't you fall asleep?
Brian.
I'm not falling asleep.
Okay. Brian, here is profoundlydisconnected.com. If you want, Mike Rowe, right? Dirty Jobs.
Yeah.
What you were saying about your dad and the those types
Trades.
of jobs, those trade jobs, Mike Rowe really is trying to show people and make it sexy to be part of those trades again.
Not everybody goes to college kind of mentality.
He said probably he said when he was a junior or a senior, he saw that picture. Work harder or work smarter. So work harder, there's somebody with grease on their hands.
Right.
Or work smarter, here's a diploma. And he's like,
makes sense.
And at this point, years later, we have all these kids getting diplomas, getting degrees in things that don't mean anything. And there's no career for them. But
at the same time,
he goes, I've been around the United States and there is a huge demand for trade jobs and nobody is even putting out for them.
hundreds of thousands of jobs a year don't get filled because nobody has the skill to fill them.
Right.
And I took one of my kids to Kirkwood Community College in Cedar Rapids, had one of those big windmills put up on their campus, right? And they're already like years ahead of the game of paying it off.
Right.
Because of money they're getting back from the city of energy that they're giving him. And the guy said that you could do a 2-year degree and learn how to maintain one of those windmills. A 2-year degree, maintain a windmill, it's a 25 to 30-year guaranteed job.
Oh, yeah.
Because
nobody else knows how to do it.
And they assign you to that windmill. So say it's up here in Minnesota somewhere.
Right.
And they say, here you go. This is your windmill. Take care of it.
Yep.
And you and another guy tag team together, and you take care of that windmill for 25 years, $75,000 to $80,000 a year.
Wow.
I mean, holy shit.
Yeah. So you can go to profoundlydisconnected.com to learn more about Mike Rowe's works foundation. And my mom is in her late 50s, and she got thrown out of her factory job. Terrible situation. I won't go into it. But she didn't know what to do. And who the hell is going to hire somebody in their late 50s? And I said,
it's tough.
It might not hurt you to check out Mike Rowe's website, because they had at that time where they were trying to help people get them into these trade 2-year schools. And if you finished it, like you were actually working at GE. As you're doing your trade school, and when you finished it, you had a job there. So that's what roughly what I thought it was back a few years ago. But Mike Rowe, profoundlydisconnected.com, I thought that was pretty amazing.
It's awesome.
Now, the TED Talk that we were talking about earlier, how to run a company with almost no rules, and they were talking about the school, he finishes off with his schooling. Now, that leads me into the last TED Talk that I wanted to talk about really quickly. The most viewed TED Talk. How many views do you think this TED Talk has gotten? Just some guesses.
2 million?
Okay, 2 million. What do you think, Todd?
Taking the over on that?
I'm going to say like 11.
31,900,000 times.
That's a little...
And this TED Talk is
other.
by Sir Ken Robinson.
What's it about?
How schools kill creativity. It is the most viewed TED Talk.
31 million times. That's a lot.
Yeah.
31,942,935 times. Almost 32 million, okay?
Is that, you think, I haven't heard anything about it, but do you think it's procreate? Meaning that we're brainwashing these kids just to know the basics of I can't pronounce the name. I'm getting drunk.
Damn you, Hooters.
The basic needs of life, math, reading, writing, but not understanding.
The concepts of
Yeah, or where the trade. Speaking of trades, is where it's actually going to lie.
I think that we're, and I could be completely speaking out of my ass, but this is the feeling I get. The feeling I get is that we are prepping our kids to follow rules and stay in line and do as I say and go to the factory and I'm your boss and don't think outside the box and this is what you need to do. I see that happening more. I see that more than, or how do you run an iPad? I don't want you to, I don't want my kid, I don't want my 9-year-old to learn how to run an iPad right now. I want my 9-year-old to learn the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic, and like really have that shit down. I do not want you spending any time on more electronics. I mean, study after study after study comes out saying kids should only have X amount of time in front of a screen a day.
Right.
And I'm terrible at that. I go way over that. But yet, then they go to school and you want to shove them in front of another screen.
Right.
And you want to take these little balls of energy. Todd, do you know what I'm talking about? And you want to shove them down into a desk and you want to say, don't move, focus, do everything that your biology is telling you not to do right now. Oh, you can't do that? Let me drug you. So that I see that happening, and then I see this TED Talk and I go, holy shit, here's somebody that seems to agree with me.
Well, you know, one of the things that I can bring this up is that I was given a speech one time for getting my bachelor's on a marketing subject, and for some reason I was one of the oldest people in that class at that time, and I go, yeah, I'm just gonna put this out there, and this probably has nothing to do with what I'm trying to praise or brand at this point, but who in this class knows how to write cursive? And out of the 20 or 21 people in the class, maybe 10 people raised their hand. None of them, I mean, besides maybe writing their name, who writes anymore?
Right.
You see read, write, well, what's writing? Writing is learning how to run a computer versus actually writing. Anymore. I think these teachers, and no offense there, Todd, not that you're a teacher or anything.
I was like,
you can blank that one out.
we'll cut that fucker right out of there. He did it too.
What did I do?
Well, you know this, Todd. Make
I
these kids
said
down.
little bundles of energy. I meant your kids. I meant your boys.
Oh.
But it's funny that, you know, it scared me a little bit, you know, because how hard we were pushed to make sure you get your B's correct.
It's hand-eye coordination.
And make it
fine motor skills.
Right. And I feel like it's failed. And it's not even being taught. I'm sure it's still being taught, but it's not forced.
Well,
The emphasis
it's
isn't
not
on
seen
that
as an important thing. You're right. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. It's seen academically as an important thing, but is it really important?
No,
when you can sit there on an iPad and type everything out, or a laptop and type it all out and spell check it, do you really need to know how to write shit down? I would disagree and say yes, of course you do. But I think there are some parts of society saying, do they really need to know all this stuff?
Well, I'll give you an example.
Fill me.
You know, we talked about, you know, future of if all electronics and everything shut down. I'll give you another example, just real quick. We're on an island, and we need to get some help here. And does anybody have a computer with them to just
a note in a bottle
to put help in the sand? I don't know how to write help. That's just, I know it's a stupid scenario, but that's the mindset of these kids. It's like, well, my iPad, you should be able to put that in the sand somewhere.
Right.
Well, the sad part is these tablets or iPads or any of these devices has become a crutch. like what
Right.
you're saying. I have a hard time going to a dinner, taking my kids to dinner, going in a car, even if it's like a 5-minute ride in the car. Can I bring my iPad? No. Can I bring my game set? No. Can I listen to the radio? Can we just have some quiet? Can we just maybe talk about our day?
Right.
Can we just chill out? The kids have a really hard time with that. And it's become such a social norm, and they're being stimulated constantly, like unrealistic stimuli.
Well, it's a lot of
Constantly.
information too.
Yeah, and their tablets.
I'm not
games.
saying that technology is bad because they're being fed a ton of more than we were ever felt.
Sure.
In information wise, I'm not saying that's bad, but the minor things to get through a day without having to have a electronic piece or just moderate basic skills.
Even Steve, I mean, it's now pretty well known that Steve Jobs wouldn't let his kids use iPads and iPods.
Right.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were a distraction. They kept from real learning and real creativity. Yeah.
Maybe we can take a page out of his book.
Can I tell you my favorite
Jesus
TED Talk?
Christ. Oh, you're going to
Other French
participate?
science stuff. That's French science. Okay.
My favorite TED Talk.
What do you...
Reggie Watts.
No.
Here's the good part.
Reggie Watts. This is one guy with one machine. He's recording himself
Yeah.
on the machine, and then he lets the machine cycle that, and then he gives it another sound, records it, cycles that in there. Did you want to put it maybe closer to the microphone? Again, one guy with one machine.
Wow. It's amazing.
And it's like,
It's the best.
Yeah. I'll admit.
It's a pretty good TED Talk.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And a lot of the songs he does is that song he was actually singing certain lyrics.
Yeah.
He'll sing other songs where there's no actual words. He's just saying things in certain
And it
octaves.
just
and
translated
It sounds like, oh, he's singing something we just can't hear it, but oh, it's great. Kind of thing.
No, yeah. That's
Yeah, he's awesome.
You know what? We've kept Bryan at his home
It's really late.
long
too.
enough.
It's
Wrapped
it's
up.
past
Yeah, let's wrap
midnight.
things up.
Jesus.
I want to say thank you very much, Bryan, for hosting
Hey,
tonight.
we
Thanks,
really
buddy.
appreciate it.
welcome.
man.
It's been a blast. I appreciate it. And I have one question though, and this is before we wrap it up here.
Okay.
Sweet.
But there was I don't know if you guys listen to Howard Stern or not.
Yes,
I think
Yeah,
Todd. I don't. I haven't.
I do.
I listen to Howard Stern quite a bit, and he's liberal of his own thoughts and theories or whatever. But he's a great interviewer for that matter. But it was brought out on podcasting alone, and there was an episode that he frowned upon podcasts. He's like, well, get out there and make a living and get out there and get a job and do it. Why should you have to just podcast just to have your words be? And he frowned against it. And I was, knowing that you two do this very often, I go, I don't know if I agree with that. And I didn't know if Todd, you had heard that episode before when he was talking.
I did hear that, and I've heard lots of conversations about it outside.
Right.
Joe Rogan's talked about it as well.
I wanted to know your feelings on that.
I mean, obviously, he's a very he kind of pioneered radio. I mean,
Right.
XM and Sirius probably wouldn't be quite on the map if it wasn't for him and his medium of communication. I think it maybe part of it is just a not understanding what podcasting is about, or it's almost like he's caught in his own web a little bit of going, well, I've been doing this for so long this way.
Old
so this
school.
new thing is happening. I mean, part of me wishes that he would be a little more open-minded about it and say, okay, here's a new medium. Mm-hmm. Just a new medium. You know, It's like radio or TV or whatever the hell it is, or the YouTube or whatever the form of media you're going to use. So I was kind of disappointed in that. But part of me thought it came from just a lack of just kind of knowledge about it. That's kind of my point of view.
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of jealousy.
I agree. That's how I felt. He's
all of a
like,
sudden,
hey, why doesn't everybody work as hard as I do?
I mean, he fought a long
Why would you be
war.
if you make $100 million a year from Sirius? Why would you be jealous of anybody?
No, I mean he really had to deal with a lot of shit, legal shit with
did.
the FCC and all this stuff. And I mean
to get where he is,
where he is, and he's always pushed the boundaries, and he's always had to fight with. I mean, I think what he deep down really believes is, I think he honestly thinks, I wish that would have been available when I was younger. Because I would have been a podcasting motherfucker.
Right.
Oh, I get.
Because he wouldn't have
Joe
had
Rogan
to
says
fight
it all the
with
time.
anybody.
He's like, why would you not have your own podcast?
Right.
And say whatever the fuck you want to say.
Yeah,
Right.
you have no boss.
You have no boss. You can do whatever you want.
There is no FCC.
Yeah, there's no regulations on it, so you can be whoever you want.
Yep.
And it actually allows you to be a little bit more free to be who you are.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like, I mean, it's like anything. It'd be like a DVD, manufacturer being upset because Louis C.K. said, "Hey, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have my own production crew, and I'm going to have them film an hour episode for me of a comedy, show. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just going to put it on my website, and people, if they want to download it for $5, they can. $5 a piece. Instantaneously, he made $1 million.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? I'm sure there were people that were pissed about that because they're losing out on the revenue that they would have made.
But it's just, again, it's a change, and it's just a change in time. It's just, it's a new medium.
Right, Todd. Is the fact that he felt a little bit jealous of why wasn't this around when I was going through hell, trying to get to where I am now.
But
so I see jealousy in the
certain
sense
part.
of that. That makes sense. I would totally agree. Jealous in the sense of, I really had to bust my ass and go through a lot of strife to get where I'm at.
So he wants everybody else to bust their ass to get. And let's just face it, it's a lot easier to get your name on a radio or get your name on a podcasting because it's more of a. Let's just face it. Podcasting is like serious radio now.
But radio is still big because, like Bob and Tom in the mornings, they're a syndicated show. They're still very popular. People still want to be on their show and get time to be with them because they have a big following. So there's still an aspect.
There's part of what he said that is very true, which is they all want to be a radio. They all want to do what I'm doing, which is true. We all want to be able to put our voices out there. We all want to have that feeling that my opinions matter and I'm putting it out there into the ether, and I hope that somebody's going to listen to it and go, I agree with that. That's not a crazy idea. I feel the same way. Yeah. And he worked his ass off, but I mean, I look at what he's doing with his interviews. Look at the people that he gets to meet. Hell yeah. That's what I would love to do, and I'm doing it now by doing this podcast. I get to meet people I never would have met before.
Right.
So there's an aspect of what he said that is completely true, which is we want to be radio talk show hosts, but we don't have to be employed by a radio station.
Right. That title has changed.
That's the break in the logic.
I agree.
Yeah. And that would be tough. I mean, imagine if you pioneered television. And then shit's all. Now you can watch YouTube on whenever you want on whatever you want.
Dude, I guarantee you.
Know what I mean?
I guarantee you, ABC, NBC, CBS,
Gone.
They were freaking out when satellite television came out, and you had all these other networks coming out.
Right.
But now people can have their own television studios in their own homes. If you have a green screen, you have a few lavalier microphones, you have a decent camera, and you have a good computer, you can make yourself be anywhere.
YouTube again. Yeah.
Bam, you are out there for the public to enjoy.
Yeah. But even then, it takes time. Because, I mean, we've talked about this guy who was on Joe Rogan, and he's like, so what's it like being an overnight sensation on YouTube? You're like the newest YouTube genius baby. You know, he's like, dude, I've been doing this for 7 years. I've been on YouTube for 7 years, and just now I'm getting popular and getting money from YouTube because of the hits I'm making.
Right.
It took me a long time to get to drum up that following, you know? So it all takes time.
So should we call it quits for the day?
Yep.
I want to say again, thank you to USAEntertainmentAgency.com. Jeff Johnson, he sets us up with comedians all the time.
It's a good dude.
We really, really appreciate it, Jeff.
Yeah,
Thank you
Jeff,
very much
you're
for
awesome.
that. And we get to meet a lot of wonderful, wonderful people. If you want to book yourself an entertainer, go to USAEntertainmentAgency.com. And Todd, if somebody watches us on YouTube, are you thinking about your whole spiel?
Yep, I got it all right here.
If somebody watches us on YouTube, how else could they enjoy us?
The
Or
easy-
what do you want them to do? Or how do you want them to dress? Or do you want them to call you? I'm just going to keep fucking with you. Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go
You're
ahead.
done. Fucking
No, I want to know.
Yeah.
Go to tpspproductions.com. When you're on there, you can follow us on iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. It's all right there at the click of a button. Also, you'll also at the very top of that little pile of buttons you can push, you will see a donate button. Please hop on to our donate page and give to TPSP Productions. We also have an Indiegogo campaign, which will be over by the time you hear this.
Yeah, I don't even know why you said it.
I don't know why I said it. I said the donate button first. So that's all that matters.
Yeah, the donation button helps out for overhead, and it helps us so that we can go out and do more trips to meet more people. And it also helps us when we want to help with other projects like the Metro High School 40-year anniversary.
Yeah. And at some point, we can get rid of the donate button. That'd be awesome.
That would be great, wouldn't it?
Be It'll be glorious. It'll happen. So
Yeah.
Hey, I don't know what you guys have on events this year, but I'm looking forward to see you guys on Ragbri.
we'll be there for a
Talked
couple.
about it, yeah.
We'll be there for a day or two. It won't be the whole thing. Next year, maybe we can do the whole thing. This year, it'll just be a day or two. So
No, it'd be perfect for you guys.
it'll be fun.
Yeah, a lot of riders, that'd be fun.
Are there going to be any Hooter girls?
We don't. I hope so.
more scantily dressed than Hooter girls. I'll tell you that.
Depends where we're at. I could probably hook you up with some local locations for the DJs or.
I thought for a second he was
Partying.
going to say a little girl. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Local. Okay.
Local.
Anyway, thank you everybody for tuning in tonight.
Brian, thanks again, man.
Thanks, Brian.
Really
Hey.
appreciate it.
I'm Matt.
It was a blast. Thank you.
I'm Todd.
We'll see you later.
Adios.
Good night.